we've been saying in the beginning of this session that there's so much malware we're seeing out there. So currently at the moment we're seeing more than 50,000 samples of malicious software every day. We process all that. We have automated systems to deal with that because the quantity is just overwhelming for manual processing. But if we think of the reasons for this, as Rule mentioned in the beginning, the main reason is money. The days when malware was being created just, let's say, for hoaxes or for pranks are over. Most of the malware that we're seeing right now have just one motivation, and that is to make money. And how do you make money? How do you make money legitimately in real life? By stealing, of course. And that's the same thing that's happening with cybercrime. And if we were to divide the methods of making money through cybercrime, you would come up with two main categories, which is stealing either directly from the users or using the users', let's say, resources to provide services for other cyber criminals. So when talking about stealing directly from the users, like Nico showed you in his presentations, but I'm talking about either making users pay for illegitimate products or redirecting their financial transactions to cyber criminals' accounts. And when talking about providing resources to other cyber criminals, it's because of the fact that, let's face it, many of us who are using computers right now are not necessarily dealing with financial information, with online payments. So even if you're not dealing with online payments on your machines still have value for the cyber criminals as long as they are connected to the internet, right? Because they can provide services to other, let's say, partners of theirs, like sending spam or launching denial of service attacks towards some of their other targets, doing pay-per-click frauds, frauding online advertising networks, and stuff like that. But what we've been also monitoring and seeing lately is a new trend towards using the infected computers to actually extract valuable information for them. And this might not necessarily apply to home users, but when talking about businesses and corporations, having infected computers inside such a corporate network can be literally a gold mine for cyber criminals. Talking here about more, let's say, valuable things than a grandmother losing $100 to some Ukrainian cyber criminals. I'm talking here about, let's say, intellectual property theft or corporate espionage, things that can actually ruin a business. So, just wanted to ask you, can anybody recognize this fine-looking natural phenomenon? An aurora, that's right. Well, yeah, it's definitely a nice thing. I've actually seen a scenery similar to this one while I was traveling to Japan last year from the airplane. But when working in the IT security industry, whenever we see something like this, whenever we see an aurora, we immediately start thinking about the targeted attacks that Google made public at the beginning of the year. And this was, I think, the first time when actually targeted attacks went mainstream. People actually started talking about them because, of course, when an attack can make a company as big as Google rethink their strategy in some parts of the world, then it definitely means that these things can prove to be dangerous. So a few words about targeted attacks versus a classical malware attack. The first thing that needs to be pointed out is the fact that when talking about a targeted attack, we're talking about small sizes. Cyber criminals, they don't need to send out tens of thousands of emails, of spam messages to be able to make money out of it. Just one email, if it's properly targeted to a specific person inside the corporate network, is enough for their success. Now, the second thing is that, and this is mostly concerning our business, is the fact that targeted organizations, they are either not aware of what's happening, or if they become aware, they are most likely to be unwilling to share information about the attack because, of course, nobody wants to have the bad publicity. What this means for us is that it's very hard for us to get malware samples for analysis. It's if it's an incident that didn't happen to one of our customers, it's very hard to analyze what's happening and to develop future protection for that. Now, the third thing is that classical antivirus technology based on signature scanning, which is scanning for known malicious files, is totally useless here. Usually, all the malicious files used in targeted attacks are totally new. They weren't used in other attacks before, so when they are totally new, the classic signature-based technology becomes useless. This is why AV companies are shifting towards proactive protection techniques that can provide protection against unknown threats. And the last thing that needs to be pointed out is that we're talking here about much higher stakes, as I mentioned earlier. Companies losing important documents, important trade secrets, intellectual property theft, and things that can really ruin a business. Now, if you would be an attacker and you would like to, let's say, launch such an attack, I've prepared 4 little steps, 4 basic steps to gain a better understanding of what's actually happening. So the first thing that's happening is the reconnaissance part. This is the first step, and I think the most important one. In order to successfully deliver such an attack, cyber criminals, they need to know their victim. They need to know who the most important employees are, who the most valuable employees are, and who are the employees that are most likely to fall for the tricks they will be using. This is where they gather all the information. Now, after they gather all the information, they need to move on to the technical part, which is to develop some sort of new and undetected malicious program that can help them gain access undetectably to the victim's network. Then the third step, they basically mix the first 2 steps, the social and the reconnaissance part, which helps them better craft their social engineering strategies, mix them with the new and undetected malicious payload, and launch the attack. And then there's the last step, which is physically delivering the attack, taking control over the network, searching for the important information, and getting everything out. So, I was mentioning the fact that the reconnaissance part is the most important one. And I would like to try out a little experiment with you today, if you're going to support me. So if you could just turn to the person closest to you here in this room and tell them the color of the underwear that you're wearing today. Right, so most people actually laughed and they didn't say anything. They didn't say any color, and I'm actually not surprised. Because let's face it, usually in real life, it's very hard for us to share very intimate details of our personal lives with people we don't necessarily know, right? But the thing is, on social networks, this is happening. People are always sharing information that when, let's say, confronted to a stranger on the street in real life, they wouldn't be willing to share it. I'm not sure how maybe the ladies in the room are familiar with this. This was it's happening at the beginning of the year, and all of a sudden, all the women on Facebook started sharing the color of their underwear online of their bras, right? Okay. So yeah, you see, this is I think this is the best example to see how people are more likely to share personal things online rather than in real life. So moving on. We share so much personal information online right now, and if we think about it, the advertisers are already using the information available about us to make money. This is how Google makes money. This is how Facebook makes money. They make money by better targeting their clients' ads toward the users, using information related to our age, gender, personal interests, field of work, relationships, browsing habits, etc. And if the advertisers are using it, I don't see any reason why cyber criminals wouldn't do the same thing, because the information is already out there, right? So if the information is already out there on social networks, I don't see any reason why cyber criminals wouldn't use this information to automate their techniques of better targeting their